Hey, Soul Stories fam. We've got a sweet and totally swoon-worthy love story for you today. Let's jump in. The Hale Dynamics building towered like a giant block of steel and glass in the heart of New York City. On Monday morning, streams of people in suits with ID badges flowed into the main lobby, forming a hurried current. The clack of high heels on marble blended with the tapping of keyboards at the reception desk, creating a chaotic yet energetic symphony. Amelia Carter stopped in front of the massive revolving door and took a deep breath. She whispered to herself, "Not just survive, I'll make them remember me." In her hand was a temporary badge that read, Intern, Marketing Strategy. To others, it might just be a fleeting opportunity, a line to add to a resume. But for Amelia, this was the beginning. After 2 years of struggling through odd jobs at small agencies, she had waited for exactly this, her chance to set foot inside one of the most powerful tech corporations in the world. Amelia wasn't the shy, obedient type who nodded at every instruction. She knew that might make life easier, but it went against her nature. Blunt, sharp, sometimes sarcastic. If I've walked into the tiger's den, I might as well leave some claw marks, she thought, a half smile tugging at her lips. The 20th floor conference room was packed. Around 30 interns sat neatly in rows facing a large projector screen. Everyone seemed tense, as if even their breathing needed approval. Amelia picked a seat in the middle row, crossed her legs casually, and opened a small crimson notebook not to take obedient notes, but to doodle her first impressions. The man stepping onto the podium was James Davidson, Director of Strategy. He was in his 40s, hair slicked back, pale gray tie, and the kind of stiff smile that said, "I'm friendly because I have to be, not because I want to." His voice was steady, rhythmic, as though he were reading from a script. "Welcome to Hale Dynamics. Here we value discipline, efficiency, and absolute dedication. Remember, the coming months will determine whether you have a future here or not. Questions should only be asked when absolutely necessary, and preferably, don't ask too many." A few people forced nervous laughs. Amelia raised an eyebrow, twirling her pen. "Really? Don't ask too many questions? That's like telling us to switch off our brains and just nod." Davidson went on, presenting slides that outlined the mission, vision, and growth numbers. A heavy boredom settled over the room. When he reached the section on expected intern behavior, his tone hardened. "The most important thing is compliance. You are not allowed to draw excessive attention to yourselves. A good intern is supportive, never a burden." Amelia let out a soft, quiet laugh, but enough for the person next to her to glance over. Davidson heard it, paused, and his eyes swept the room until they landed squarely on her. "Is there a problem, Miss Carter?" The entire room turned. The air tightened like a stretched string. Amelia slowly closed her notebook, lifted her head, and spoke clearly. "I was just wondering, if interns aren't allowed to stand out, aren't allowed to ask too many questions, then aren't we basically expected to be like spare chairs? Just sitting quietly, waiting until someone needs to pull us out and use us?" A muffled burst of laughter rippled from a few seats. Most, however, held their breath, terrified Davidson would explode. Davidson froze. His face stiffened, the corner of his mouth twitching slightly. "What exactly do you mean by that?" Amelia tilted her head, that half smile back in place. "I mean, if the company only hires interns to nod and never ask questions, then maybe photocopiers would be more loyal. But I assume Hale Dynamics wants more than that. Or am I mistaken?" The room went dead silent. The sound of a pen hitting the table echoed like a church bell. A few exchanged furtive glances, some thrilled, some horrified. Davidson inhaled deeply, forcing a strained smile. "Miss Carter, is it? Very candid. I hope that your curiosity translates into real productivity. Let's continue." He turned back to the slides, clicking too hard, nearly dropping the remote. Amelia leaned back in her chair and scribbled another line in her notebook. "Step 1. Make sure they know I'm not a spare chair." On the top floor, inside Damian Hale's executive office, he was in the middle of a video conference with European partners, but his eyes drifted to the side monitor, the internal security camera feed. A small frame showed the 20th floor conference room, Among the orderly rows, a brunette with her hair tied up stood, speaking. Damien hit pause on the call, muting the sound. He leaned in, enlarging the screen. Her voice carried over the speakers. If the company wants a silent, then maybe a photocopier would do the job better. Damien chuckled quietly. Rarely did anyone catch him off guard. At Hale Dynamics, people were either terrified or flattering. An intern daring to speak up during orientation? He'd never seen that before. His gaze lingered on her. Her expression was confident, fearless. Yet in her bright eyes was something more than wit, determination. Damien murmured to himself, Amelia Carter. Remember that name? Down below, Davidson struggled to regain control of the session, but the atmosphere had shifted. Some interns giggled quietly. Others looked at Amelia with admiration. As for Amelia, she simply shrugged and spun her pen as if it had all been a small joke. But deep down, she knew. The first door had just opened. And on the top floor, Damien Hale was watching, a rare spark flickering in his cold eyes. That afternoon, the 20th floor was slowly emptying out. The other interns huddled in the pantry, whispering about their first deadline. Amelia stayed at her desk, eyes fixed on the dry marketing data spread across her screen. She had just taken a sip of bitter coffee when the desk phone suddenly rang. Carter, get up to the 45th floor. Immediately. Davidson's voice was icy. A brief silence followed. The entire office turned its eyes on Amelia. The 45th floor, everyone knew that was Damien Hale's domain. The elusive CEO most employees only ever saw in glossy magazine spreads. Rumor had it he was a cold genius who never smiled and who despised uselessness. Amelia hung up, tucked her notebook into her bag, and stood. Well, less than a week in, and I've already been invited for a private meeting with the CEO. Either I just hit the jackpot, or I'm about to be escorted out the back door. The elevator doors slid open, delivering her into a world entirely different from the floors below. Walls paneled in gleaming wood, thick carpet that swallowed the sound of her heels. No chatter, no clacking keyboards. Just a charged silence, the kind that made her feel like she was stepping into a king's court. The blonde receptionist at the front desk glanced up, eyeing Amelia from head to toe, brows knit as if wondering, which floor did this kid get lost from? Mr. Hale is expecting you, she said coolly, gesturing toward the double doors at the end of the corridor. Amelia inhaled, smiled, and replied, thanks. Beautiful hallway, by the way. Walking down it feels like heading straight to an execution chamber. The receptionist blinked, stunned, but before she could respond, Amelia had already pushed through the doors. Damien Hale's office was the size of an apartment. Afternoon light poured through the vast glass wall, casting a golden glow across the hardwood floor. At the center, behind a minimalist desk, sat the man wrapped in 1,000 rumors. Damien Hale. He lifted his eyes from his laptop, cold gray, piercing straight into her bones. For a fleeting second, Amelia felt as though every layer of her was being dissected. But instead of bowing her head, she raised her chin and walked forward. You're Carter? Damien's voice was low even. Yes, Amelia Carter. Temporary intern. Not a spare chair. One of Damien's brows arched. He remembered that line from orientation. The corner of his mouth nearly moved. Good. I called you up here for a test. Amelia pulled out a chair and sat, calm as though chatting with a peer. Multiple choice or essay style. Product strategy, Damien answered at once. Suppose Hale Dynamics is preparing to launch a new line of medical devices. How would you convince the market we're superior to Apple Health Tech or Medivance? The question hit like a stone. A normal intern would have stammered, offering cliches. But Amelia rested her chin on her hand, thought for less than 10 seconds, and replied, I wouldn't try to convince the market by shouting, we're superior. That sounds like cheap advertising. I'd tell a story. Say your device doesn't just track heart rate, it predicts stroke risk. Then I'd find a 60-year-old man who nearly died, but survived thanks to that technology, who can now walk his granddaughter to school. I'd let him tell it. A survivor's story speaks louder than any revenue slide. Silence. Damien's gray eyes flickered, as though something had just struck both his logic and emotions at once. Amelia went on, lacing her tone with a hint of irony. But if you'd still prefer I chant, Hail number one, Hail unbeatable, I can do that too. Though I suspect the photocopier on the 20th floor would handle it better. Damien laughed, a real laugh, low, brief, resonating in a room accustomed only to the clatter of keyboards and the buzz of phones. Even he was surprised. How long had it been since he'd last laughed here? 3 months? 6? You are truly something, he said, his voice noticeably softer. Amelia shrugged. I just speak the truth, and truth tends to make people uncomfortable. Damien leaned back, studying the girl across from him. No deference, no hesitation. Her eyes were bright, ready to counter any strike. An intern like this, utterly different. They sparred a little more, tossing numbers and trends back and forth. Each time Damien posed a difficult question, Amelia fired back with an unusual angle, sometimes even mocking his assumptions. Instead of being annoyed, he felt his mind sharpen and become engaged. Something rare since taking the CEO chair. When the exchange ended, Damien rose. You may go. I'll keep an eye on you. Amelia stood, smiling faintly. Positive or negative attention, I'll find out soon enough, won't I? Damien answered only with an unreadable nod. Once she left, silence reclaimed the room. Damien sat again and pulled up the internal screen. Davidson appeared, wearing his habitual, subservient expression. You called for me, sir. Carter, put her on a tough project. Don't tell her why. I want to see if she's truly worthy or just lucky. Davidson frowned. But sir, she's only... Damien cut him off, his voice cold again. I don't repeat myself. The screen went dark. Damien leaned back in his chair, gaze drifting out through the glass where the sunset spilled gold across the city. A faint, ambiguous smile lingered on his lips. Amelia hadn't yet recovered from the strange encounter on the 45th floor when the very next morning, Davidson came straight to her desk. Carter, prepare the files. You'll be joining the Phoenix project team. The entire office fell silent. Phoenix is the most important project at Hale Dynamics this year. If it failed, the company would lose millions and its reputation. Being pulled in as an intern was nothing short of headline news. Amelia looked up, smiling. So I got promoted already? Should I swap my chair for one that swivels, Mr. Davidson? He narrowed his eyes, voice sharp. Don't joke. Remember this. You're not here because of talent. You're here because someone wants to test you. The words hit like cold water to the face, but Amelia only nodded calmly. Fine by me. I like tests, especially when people think I'll fail. On the first meeting day, Amelia sat at the corner of the round table, facing a lineup of seasoned employees. Raymond from marketing, Clara from PR, and Daniel from finance. None of them bothered to hide their disdain. Raymond cleared his throat, winking at Clara. So we've got ourselves a golden link. An intern dropped straight into $1 million project. Must be God-given talent. Laughter erupted. Amelia smiled, replying crisply. Talent, I'm not sure about. But at least I've got ears to hear your sarcasm. The room stiffened. Discussion began. Ideas circled the table. Classic TV ads, glossy brochures, traditional medical conferences. Amelia stifled a yawn. It all sounded like reruns from a decade ago. Finally, Davidson concluded, We'll go with a conference. Anyone object? Amelia raised her hand. Every head turned. Carter! Davidson's tone dripped with annoyance. Sorry, but conferences are boring. We're talking about life-saving technology. Why not make it come alive? An interactive exhibition lets guests experience their heart stopping, then see our device save them in 5 seconds. Put them in the patient's shoes instead of making them sit through another dull slideshow. Silence, Clara snorted. So your idea is to turn the event into a video game? If needed, yes, Amelia shot back steady. People don't remember numbers. They remember experiences. Raymond can print another 1,000 brochures, but what they'll retell is, I was just saved by this technology right there in the hall. Some eyes softened. Less skeptical, Daniel even gave a subtle nod. Davidson tapped his pen against the table, clearly irritated, though he didn't shut her down outright. Over the following week, Amelia threw herself into building out the concept. She sketched storyboards, mapped out scenarios, and lost track of time. A few colleagues quietly drifted to her desk, drawn into brainstorming with her. One late afternoon, Raymond sighed. I've got to admit, your idea has fire. If it works, Phoenix will really stand out. Amelia winked. Was that a compliment? Should I record it? They both laughed. But as soon as Raymond left, Davidson appeared behind her. Carter, I think you've forgotten your place. This isn't a stage for you to perform. Amelia spun her chair to face him. I thought this was a project to save the company, not to save anyone's seat. Davidson's eyes darkened. He didn't answer, just slammed the door on his way out, hard enough to shake the papers on her desk. The next day in the official assignment sheet, Amelia's name was missing from the presentation team. Her role was reduced to collating documents and checking typos. Everyone knew what was happening, but no one dared say a word. Clara even smirked as Amelia hunched over commas and semicolons. That night, Amelia stayed late, staring at the proposal she had helped shape, now rebranded under someone else's name. She bit her lip. Fine, they can erase me from the slides, but the idea has already been planted, and I'm not done yet. The clock read 8:45 p.m. The office was nearly empty. Amelia packed her bag about to leave when her computer chimed. Ding, a new email. Sender, Damian Hale. Carter, meet me on the 50th floor. 9 p.m., don't be late. Amelia stared at the words, her pulse quickening. The 50th floor is the restricted zone, reserved only for the highest executives. She drew a deep breath, clutching her bag tight. Looks like the game just leveled up. The elevator carried Amelia up to the 50th floor, the highest point of Hale Dynamics. The door slid open, revealing a dark, carpeted corridor so quiet that her heels echoed against the silence. Warm golden light spilled down, luxurious yet cold. A frosted glass door swung open from within. Damian Hale appeared in a white shirt, sleeves rolled up, tie loosened, his face taut but his eyes blazing. He didn't look at her right away, just tossed out a clipped command, "Come in." Amelia stepped into a vast office, its glass wall overlooking the city below. The table was cluttered with Phoenix project files, financial reports glowing on an open laptop. You know Davidson just cut you from the presentation team? Damian asked evenly. Amelia shrugged. News travels fast. But I doubt you called me up here to talk about typos, did you? One corner of Damian's mouth twitched. He gestured for her to sit across from him. Correct. I want to hear you present it yourself. The life-saving experience idea. I read the draft, but I want to see how you defend it. Amelia tilted her head, eyes glinting with mischief. Midnight, top floor, the CEO summoning an intern to pitch. Are you sure this isn't some kind of psychological test? For a moment, Damian was silent. Then he let out a rare, quiet laugh. The sound lingered against the glass walls. Consider it that if you want, begin. Amelia rose, moving to the smartboard. Without notes, she sketched confidently. An exhibition hall, interactive stations, guests fitted with sensors to experience cardiac arrest, only to see Hale Dynamics device restart their hearts. Damian folded his arms, watching every stroke of her pen. And if a guest panics, what if we get sued? We're not inducing real heart attacks. It's a simulation with data and light. They'll feel out of control for just a few seconds, enough to grasp the value of the technology. Damian tapped his fingers against the desk. Cost? Half of a traditional conference, with twice the media impact. She spoke fluidly, eyes steady. Damian was silent for a long moment, then asked slowly, You're not afraid I'm setting a trap, waiting for you to slip up? Amelia smiled. Of course I'm afraid. But if I don't speak, you'll never know what I can do. And I hate being underestimated. At that, Damian leaned back, a spark of interest flickering in his gray eyes. It had been a long time since anyone looked him in the eye and dared to push back. Instead of closing the discussion, Damian suddenly stood, picked up a pen, and adjusted her drawing. This station should be near the entrance. First impressions matter. Amelia squinted at him. Oh, so the CEO even knows exhibition design? I was head of marketing before I sat in this chair. They continued sketching, refining, and debating. No longer superior and subordinate, just two minds straining at full force to build something breakthrough. Damien remained stern, yet as the night deepened, he grew more at ease. When Amelia teased, "You should smile more. Makes you look less terrifying," he actually laughed deep and genuinely, echoing in the cold glass room. It was the first time in months that Damien didn't feel the crushing grip of work. The clock ticked quietly, papers scattered, the board filled with new diagrams. Amelia finally dropped the pen, stretching, tired, but her eyes sparkling. If Phoenix fails, at least we'll have an art exhibition to fall back on. Damien sat across from her, staring a long while. Something in Amelia's gaze left him both challenged and unburdened. She wasn't afraid of him. She wasn't pandering. She was simply tossing every idea onto the table, whatever the cost. Outside, the city glittered in a sea of lights. From the 50th floor, New York shimmered like a living maze, reflected in both their eyes. Damien murmured almost to himself, "Dangerous." "What's dangerous?" Amelia raised an eyebrow. "This feeling, working until exhaustion, yet not wanting to stop." Amelia chuckled softly, though her heart beat faster. In that moment, they held each other's gaze through the city lights, a strange look, part professional, part perilous, as though a fragile boundary had just been pulled dangerously taut. After the sleepless night with Damien, Amelia thought everything would fall back into its usual rhythm. But the very next afternoon, while she was editing the project team's presentation, her desk phone buzzed. An internal message appeared, only one short line. "Tonight, 9 p.m., the Copper Lounge, DH." Amelia blinked, frowning. The CEO inviting an intern to a bar? And on a Friday night, no less? She considered it for a few seconds before chuckling to herself. Probably just another one of his bizarre tests. The Copper Lounge was tucked inside a 4-star hotel, where golden lights shimmered against polished copper walls. The atmosphere was lively yet refined. When Amelia walked in, Damien was already at the bar's corner, swirling a glass of whiskey as if the rest of the world had ceased to exist. He wore a dark suit, tie loosened. Not the cold figure from the office tonight. Damien looked more human, though a certain exhaustion lingered beneath the surface. "You're here," he said, voice low. "I want to talk more about the exhibition idea." Amelia slid onto the stool beside him and signaled to the bartender. "Gin and tonic, but I doubt you brought me out here just to discuss lighting and event budgets." Damien glanced at her, the corner of his mouth lifting faintly. "Do you always assume so much? Number, I just observe. You don't seem like the type to sit alone at a bar unless you're hiding from something." Damien let out a short laugh, rough as the whiskey in his glass. They began with a discussion of Phoenix and its communication strategies. But after only a few exchanges, the conversation slipped off the track of business. Amelia propped her chin on her hand, eyes fixed on him. "You know, sometimes I think you're the loneliest man I've ever met. An expensive suit, a skyscraper under your name. But your eyes? Empty." Damien froze. Few people had ever dared to speak to him that way. For a moment he wanted to counter her, but the words didn't come. "You really think that?" he asked, voice quieter. "I don't think. I see it. When you smile for real, it's different. But you hide it, like you're afraid someone might notice you're not always perfect." Damien turned his glass slowly, silent for a long while. At last he exhaled. "Maybe. You're not wrong. I've gotten used to carrying the whole company. In this position, people only want strength. No one wants to see weakness." Amelia smiled softly. No sarcasm this time. "Maybe you just need someone willing to see the weakness." Damien looked up, meeting her gaze. For an instant, he felt the walls he'd built so carefully begin to crack. They left the lounge close to 11, neon lights flaring across the streets. The city had shifted tempo. Fewer cars, music spilling from bars, the night air carrying a chill off the water. Damien offered to drive Amelia home, but she shook her head. "No need. Just a few blocks. Who knows? Maybe I'll stumble on another idea for Phoenix." He smiled and slowed his pace to walk beside her. They didn't speak much, only watched in silence the couples holding hands, the street vendors packing up, the taxis streaking past. At one point, their shoulders nearly brushed. Amelia didn't step away. Neither did Damien. Quietly, a strange connection grew, not loud or obvious, but enough for them both to feel it. Amelia thought to herself, this man in the $1,000 suit is, after all, just human. And Damien, for the first time in years, realized he wasn't walking alone through the night. That morning, Amelia arrived earlier than usual. In her inbox sat the final presentation assignments. She scrolled down, looking for Amelia Carter. Nothing. At the bottom, her name appeared under the support section. Technical assistance, content coordination. She froze for a beat, then let out a soft laugh. Fine. If they won't give me the microphone, I'll let the idea speak for itself. She opened the backup folder on her laptop. Plan, but better. Inside was the polished Moments journal deck she'd been refining all week. Amelia copied it onto a USB drive and slipped it into her coat pocket. Old habit of someone who'd been crossed off one too many times. 20 minutes before the meeting, Davidson appeared at her desk, voice coated in sugar. Carter, no pressure. What we need today is certainty, not experiments. Just stay on cue and switch slides at the right time. I'll switch them right on cue, Amelia smiled. Whether that cue is worth anything, the stage will decide. He froze for half a second, then walked off. Amelia's smile faded as soon as his back disappeared behind the glass wall. In her chest, adrenaline pulsed like an orchestra tuning up. The 48th floor boardroom resembled a minimalist opera stage. A long walnut table polished to a glass-like finish, black leather chairs, and glass walls that opened onto the sky after a rain. At the far end sat Lancaster Group, led by Vivian Lancaster herself. Platinum hair, cream suit, a slim fountain pen placed perfectly straight in front of her. Everything about her spoke of discipline and a craving to cut to the good part. Damien entered last. Charcoal suit, deep blue tie, a precise smile, and unreadable eyes. He shook each hand before taking the chairman's seat. Davidson sat to his left, the safe deck already glowing on the big screen. Thank you for coming. Let's begin, Damien said. The lights dimmed. Davidson stood, his voice polished as if rehearsed in the mirror. The Hale-Lancaster partnership will be built on 3 pillars: performance, safety, and scalability. Here is the benchmark compared to competitors A and B. Slide after slide. Bars, lines, tables accurate to the decimal. Soulless. Lancaster's executives uncapped pens and sipped coffee. Amelia stood at the side, tablet in hand. Each time Davidson said, "Next," she tapped. Down the table, one Lancaster manager stifled a yawn behind his folder. By slide 12, Vivian set her pen down. Her finger tapped 3 soft beats on the table, a signal Amelia had once read about. She tapped when she grew bored. I've heard this exact proposal from at least 5 companies this month. Vivian's voice was calm, clean as a blade. The numbers are fine. The structure is proper, but we didn't come here to hear what anyone could say. Is this all Hale Dynamics has? The room temperature dropped. Davidson broke into a sweat, scrambling for an appendix file. Madam, if you'll turn to supplement 2.3, we also have... No, Vivian cut him short. I don't want more tables. I want a reason to remember you. Silence dropped like a stone onto the walnut. All eyes lifted to Damien. He sat upright, hands steepled, gaze sweeping the room before settling back on Vivian. The faintest curl touched his lips, as if he had been waiting for this moment. Perhaps there's one perspective you haven't heard yet, Damien said. He turned his head toward the corner. Amelia. One word and the air shifted. Every gaze fell on the intern with the tablet. Davidson's face drained of color. Sir, she's not listed in... I just added her. Damien cut him off. Amelia heard her heartbeat against her ribs. She didn't look at Davidson, didn't look at anyone. She stepped forward, slid the tiny USB into the port. The screen blinked black, then lit up with a grainy film photograph. A father's calloused hands tying his child's shoelaces, sunlight spilling through a dusty window. Words appeared slowly, not just a product, a moment. She didn't read the slides. She told a story. Hale Dynamics can talk about processors, latency, and machine learning curves. By tomorrow, they'll be outdated. What won't be outdated is why this product exists. To bring people closer, to turn fleeting seconds into memories retold for years. An 18-second video played, an elderly woman reaching for the screen, asking, "Are you home yet?" On the other end, her son in an airport conference room, the image a little distorted, but both their smiles are perfect. The Lancaster logo appeared only at the end as a promise, not a sales pitch. Communities aren't born from discounts, Amelia continued steadily. Communities are born from shared memories. The Moments Journal campaign invites customers to share their own stories. The first time a child says mom on story mode, or a family night watching grandparents tell tales from their old country. Each story becomes a brick in the Lancaster brand, stronger than any ad. One Lancaster executive sat up straighter. Vivian stopped tapping her pen, head tilted. "You're proposing people at the center, product as the bridge?" "Yes," Amelia smiled. "When users feel they belong, they don't switch brands just because a competitor adds one new feature." Davidson rushed in. "But the cost of building a community hub, producing content—" "Half the cost of a roadshow," Amelia shot back, eyes locked on Vivian. "We leverage Hale's existing platforms to create the hub, curate real stories. Users become our ambassadors naturally, sustainably. I have projected ROI models, but spreadsheets don't hold hearts." She flashed a chart for 1 second, then shut it off. A reminder. What mattered wasn't the numbers, but the people. The room was so quiet, they could hear the faint patter of rain against the glass. Amelia's breathing steadied, as if she were back on a stage she knew by heart. She flicked a glance toward Damien. His eyes were calm but lit, as though he was walking every word with her. Vivian folded her arms, the corner of her mouth twitching. "Your name?" "Amelia Carter." "Carter, you just made me forget my watch for 10 minutes, something your entire team failed to do this morning. 2 weeks from now, I would like a comprehensive plan, a prototype of the community hub, and a pilot case. Surprise me." "We will," Damien said without glancing at his notes. A chair scraped softly. A few Hale managers exchanged looks they couldn't explain. Davidson sat stiff, jaw ticking. Amelia pulled the USB free, her hand trembling as the adrenaline drained. Not fear, but the aftershock of a leap that landed. The Q&A followed. A Lancaster director pressed on risks of user-generated content. Amelia outlined a 3-tier moderation system with tagged datasets for model training. Another pushed on privacy. She presented a layered opt-in framework with contextual anonymization. Each answer was brief and clean. The third question veered toward why let an intern, but Damien cut in, voice firm. "At Hale Dynamics, good ideas don't ask permission from job titles." The words fell like the keystone in an arch. Not favoritism, but principle and a shield at exactly the right moment. The meeting ended with Vivian's firm handshake with Damien. Then unexpectedly, she veered toward Amelia. "Your instinct placed the story exactly where it belonged," Vivian said softly, just for the two of them. "Don't let meetings grind that out of you." "I won't," Amelia replied, gratitude flickering in her eyes. The Lancaster team departed. The glass doors closed as gently as a sigh. Inside, Hale's team shuffled papers and chairs noisily, louder than usual. A manager nudged a colleague. "Saved the pitch. Plain as day." Davidson packed his files, his eyes fixed on nothing. Amelia stepped back, letting others exit first. Her heart no longer pounded, it was replaced by an odd lightness, like crossing a finish line only to discover she still had breath left to laugh. She touched her pocket where the tiny USB was resting, and silently thanked herself for always carrying plan but better. "Carter." Damien's voice stopped her at the threshold. She turned. In the rain-streaked glass, the city shimmered behind them as they faced each other with no screen in between. He didn't say, "Well done." He just looked. A look that measured no KPIs, weighed no gains or losses. The look of a man who had just witnessed a bold right choice and respected the one who made it. Amelia suddenly found it hard to breathe, not from pressure, but because the air itself felt thicker. She replied with the thinnest, most polite smile. Passing Davidson, she paused half a beat. "That last slide transition was a little jerky. Next time, let me smooth it out." Her tone was light, not mocking, just professional, but everyone heard the layer beneath. I'm here to make things better, not disappear. Outside, the rain had thickened. Amelia stood by the glass, watching headlights smear into long exclamation marks across the wet streets. She drew a deep breath, body and mind finally in the same place. Inside, behind the frosted pane, Damien said a few words to his assistant, then lifted his gaze. Their eyes met again. This time it wasn't the CEO and the intern. It was a man looking at a woman he truly admired. And beneath that admiration, something smoldered like embers under ash, waiting for a single gust of wind. Still following the story? If this story found you outside of Soul Stories, we invite you home to where every touching tale begins with truth, hope, and heart. Rumors always traveled faster than any internal report. Barely a day after the fateful meeting with Vivian Lancaster, Hale Dynamics buzzed with whispers. Some claimed Amelia had caught the CEO's eye. Others insisted no intern would dare run a backup deck unless she had someone pulling strings. Every time Amelia stepped into an elevator, she felt the stares, quick glances that lingered half a second too long before pretending to look elsewhere. At first, Amelia ignored them. She learned to live in a world full of prejudice, and she wasn't about to let gossip block her path. But by the third day, even Maya, her best friend and colleague in HR, brought it up directly. Be honest. Is there something going on between you and Damien Hale? Maya tapped her spoon against her latte at their usual cafe. Amelia burst out laughing and shrugged. Number absolutely not. I just happened to be given a chance, and I didn't waste it, that's all. That does sound logical, Maya narrowed her eyes. But I saw the way he looked at you that day. Our ice-cold CEO actually smiled. Amelia opened her mouth to retort when the cafe door swung open, night air rushing in. Both women turned, and the atmosphere shifted. Damien walked in, not in his usual tailored suit and tie, but in a dark shirt, hands in his pockets, his stride unhurried. Under the cafe's warm golden lights, he looked less like the sharp-edged executive and more human. Human, but dangerous. Maya nearly dropped her spoon. See? I say it, and he appears. If this isn't fate, what is? She hissed. Amelia tried to convince herself it was a coincidence. But when Damien moved deliberately across the cafe, bypassing every empty seat, heading straight for their table, she knew she was wrong. May I join you? His voice was low, certain. Maya raised her brows at Amelia as if shouting silently. My God, he's asking permission. Of course, Mr. Hale, Amelia answered, forcing her voice into steady neutrality. Damien sat and ordered a black espresso. Suddenly, the three-person table felt like a stage, tension humming through the air. Maya watched quietly, eyes sparkling as though live-streaming the scene. Amelia sat stiff, painfully aware that if anyone from the office saw this, the rumor mill would combust. She was just saying there's nothing between you two. Maya broke the silence, half joking, half serious. Amelia's eyes widened. Maya! Damien tilted his head, the faintest smile curving his lips. She's right. For now, there isn't. Maya choked, then laughed out loud, shaking her head. I give up. Amelia, you're on your own. I'll go grab more pastries. She slipped away to the counter, leaving the two of them under the muted cafe lights. Amelia leaned forward, hand on the table, whispering, Do you realize what you just did? The rumors are already too much. Rumors don't bother me. Damien's reply was short, certain. The way he looked at her now wasn't the way he did in boardrooms. It wasn't about evaluating ideas or overseeing an intern. It was the gaze of a man who had decided he wasn't avoiding this anymore. Amelia drew a breath, her voice hardening. Well, they bother me. I came here to learn, to work. I won't be turned into office gossip fodder. You worry too much, Damien said, and for the first time, he used you in a different tone, soft and low, almost intimate. Amelia froze. Yes, I do worry, she said through clenched teeth. I'm afraid that if I cross the line, I'll lose everything. Damien was silent for several beats, eyes fixed on hers as if peeling back every layer of defense. Then he leaned slightly closer, voice a rough murmur, his gaze holding hers steady. You're afraid, Amelia, but I'm not. In that instant, every sound in the cafe seemed to vanish. Only the thud of her heartbeat remained, colliding against her ribs, and Damien's half-smile was a mix of challenge and declaration. The message arrived at 8:12 p.m., just as Amelia stepped out of the building after a long day. Rooftop, 52nd floor, 9 o'clock, D. Dot. She stood under the awning, raindrops still clinging to the concrete edge above. The 52nd floor, the rooftop, an invitation so private it set off alarms in her head. But after his words at the cafe, "You're afraid, but I'm not," it wasn't entirely surprising that Damien had chosen a place far from prying eyes. The elevator shot upward. The mirrored glass reflected her face in a calmer light than she'd expected. The doors opened into a dim hallway, ending at a steel door with an alarm bar. Amelia pushed it open. The night wind rushed in, salty and metallic, carrying the scent of a storm that had just passed. Below, the city glittered like a map woven from light. Damien leaned against the railing, a coat in one hand and 2 paper cups in the other. A dark shirt, top button undone, tie gone, as if it had never existed. He turned at the sound of the door, eyes softer now. No boardroom chill, only fatigue and relief. "I thought you wouldn't come." "So did I," Amelia replied, taking the cup he held out. Warmth spread through her palm. "Coffee?" "Cocoa. After 7 p.m., coffee and I don't get along." They stood side by side, close enough to see each other's breath vanish into the cold air. A gust caught her, and Amelia instinctively folded her arms across her chest. Damien draped the coat over her shoulders, not asking, but slowly enough that she could have refused. "I thought a lot about the cafe yesterday," he said. "You said you were afraid. I believed you. I'm afraid of plenty of things, but not this." Amelia turned to him. "And what exactly is this?" He paused, weighing his words. "That's when you speak. The noise stops. And when you're silent, I still understand. In my world, silence is a luxury." She let out a soft laugh. "You always know how to phrase things so they can't be argued with." "I'm not trying to persuade you. I just don't want to pretend anymore." A plane streaked across the distance like a single bright dot. Below, traffic lights streamed like rivers of molten color. "What did you do up here before me?" Amelia asked, steering away from the word "this." "Breathe, and remember my father. He taught me a lot. Some of it is right, some not." His smile barely curved. "Up here, the things I thought were big look small, and the things I tried to shrink down loom huge. Like loneliness?" Amelia asked plainly. Damien didn't flinch. "Yes, like loneliness." The wind shifted, carrying the damp scent of grass from a nearby green roof. A car horn echoed faintly, then died. "I thought I could just keep my head down," Amelia said softly. "Work, learn, stay invisible. I didn't want to be the subject of elevator gossip. I did fine until Vivian's meeting." "You did more than fine. You turned a sinking meeting around," Damien said, his tone sharp with conviction. "And you did it without borrowing anyone else's voice." Amelia pressed her lips together. Compliments like that were more dangerous than any gesture. They went straight to the place she kept hidden her quiet pride, the one that refused to be pitied. "I'm still afraid," she admitted. "Not afraid of you. Afraid of the cost. Afraid every effort I've made will be written off as exchange." Damien shifted, now facing her, only an arm's length between them. "I can't control what people will say tomorrow, but I know who I am tonight, and I think you know it too." The air seemed to still. Amelia looked up. His eyes were closed, no longer sharp, only asking, "Can I? Should I?" His hand rose, tilting her chin, slow enough that she could have pulled away. But she didn't. She swallowed, almost smiling as she whispered, "You're insane." She closed her eyes. That was all he needed. The kiss came unhurried, slow as both a request and a thank you. At first a mere brush, testing the waters, then deeper, warmer, carrying the taste of cocoa, the chill of night wind. His hand at her nape didn't grip, only steadied, and that was enough to loosen the taut wire inside her. The city blurred into the backdrop. No music, only their heartbeats, climbing together, steadier, louder. When they finally parted, Amelia kept her eyes closed for a breath longer, as if to hold on to the air they'd just shared. Opening them, she met the faintest smile in Damien's gaze. Not triumphant, not possessive, just at peace. "Do you regret it?" he asked softly. "I don't know yet. Ask me in the morning," she replied, voice lighter than the breeze. They didn't say much after. They leaned on the railing, shared the now cool cocoa, traded trivial stories, the printer that ate her draft, Maya's accidental emoji in a company-wide chat. Laughter spilled, then scattered into the night air. Somewhere nearby, a rooftop bar's street jazz drifted over thin, distant, like a memory. When Amelia left, it was 11:17. The elevator carried her down to the ground floor. In the mirrored walls, she saw her wind-blown hair, the curve of her lips refusing to flatten. Inside, the old warning still whispered, but for once they couldn't drown out a smaller, brighter thought. "I chose this." The next morning, the world gave her no time to dream. Maya called at 7:09, just as Amelia was brewing coffee. The phone vibrated nonstop, overlapped by a flood of notifications. She unlocked her screen, her name flashing alongside keywords. Hale Dynamics, CEO, Intern. Blood drained from her face. "Open this article now," Maya panted on the line. "But don't scroll to the comments." Amelia tapped the link. A tabloid splashed across her screen, headline bold as a fist. A movie-worthy rooftop moment. Hale Dynamics intern locks lips with CEO under the night sky. Now we know why an intern was promoted into $1 million project. Below was a telephoto shot. The city lights behind, two silhouettes at the railing in front. Grainy, blurred, but clear enough to catch the tilt of heads, the lean of bodies, the kiss. Another frame caught him draping the coat over her shoulders, captioned slyly, "A gallant gesture, Power Brand Edition." Amelia's hands went numb. The coffee pot whistled low, then clicked off. Inside her chest, something dropped hard. "Maya," she whispered. "I know," Maya replied, steady but shaking. "I alerted PR. They're in an emergency meeting with the legal team. Don't go to the office yet. Wait for my update." More notifications flooded in. Screenshots of internal chats, comments like, "Called it," "Rocketing up the ladder," sprinkled with winking emojis. An anonymous post claimed, "Saw them at a bar last week." Another article piled on. Employees suspect intern Carter was favored unusually after the Vivian meeting. The words slashed like blades. Amelia shut the apps, but there was no door out of the internet. Each time she reopened, the filth poured in. She set her phone down, slid to the kitchen floor, and leaned back against the cabinet. The tiles sent cold straight up her spine. If only the photo were just a shadow against shadow. If only people didn't love the story of a girl climbing fast for a kiss. If only it wasn't me. A new internal message blinked. Communications depth. Statement will read, "No comment on personal matters. Involved parties are advised to remain silent." Cold. Clean. By the book. Yet paired with that photo, it read like a stamp. There is something. We just won't say it. Amelia opened her laptop, fingers typing, "Resignation draft version 1.x.x. The cursor blinked a taunt. She managed only 2 words, "Dear Sir," before stopping. Every late night sketching storyboards, every argument she'd thrown into the boardroom. Did any of it still matter, if a kiss could drown it all? The phone buzzed again. Damien Hale. His name lit up her screen like a wall of glass. She didn't pick up, not from anger, but because she feared the sound of his voice would bring her defenses crashing down. She muted the phone and shut the laptop. The hum of traffic outside suddenly felt foreign. On the chair nearby lay Damien's dark coat, the one he had draped over her shoulders, and she had tucked it into her bag. She stared at it, an object both tender and incriminating. Maybe I have to walk away. The thought surfaced, slow and heavy, like an iceberg rising. Leave Hale Dynamics before it consumes me. Before, the only thing anyone remembers is a grainy photo and a simple story. Amelia pressed her palm to her forehead, closing her eyes. Last night she had chosen the kiss. This morning the world demanded she choose something else. and for the first time since walking into this building, she truly felt she might lose everything. The leaked photo of the kiss spread at a terrifying speed. Last night, it was just a blurry snapshot circulating in anonymous group chats. By morning, it had flooded every news site. Intern climbs the ladder the easy way. Hale Dynamics CEO caught in office affair. Rooftop kiss, scandal or romance. Blazing headlines scrolled across the building's lobby screens, each one cutting like a blade. Amelia took a deep breath, tightening her grip on her bag strap as she stepped into Hale Dynamics headquarters. But the familiar tower now felt hostile, as if every brick and pane of glass turned into an accusing eye. The usually buzzing hallway was eerily quiet. Some people avoided her gaze. Others whispered openly. Amelia's footsteps echoed too loudly against the marble floor, blending with scattered murmurs. That's her. She doesn't even look like much. I heard she's only been an intern for 3 months. Some looks were contemptuous, others tinged with pity. Either way, they pierced straight through her. Amelia pressed her lips together, forcing her back straight, though her heart pounded painfully inside her chest. When the elevator doors slid open on the 30th floor, the air grew heavier. The conference room lights were on. James Davidson, Chief Strategy Officer, sat there, posture rigid, expression unreadable. On the table lay a document that had already been prepared. The bold header read, Letter of Resignation. Amelia froze, her breath catching. What is this? Davidson slid the paper toward her, his voice calm to the point of cruelty. A resignation letter. Sign it. She swallowed hard, clutching her bag strap until her knuckles turned white. You want me to leave? His face betrayed no hesitation, his tone like a verdict. It's the only way to protect the company. You're just an intern. If you disappear, the scandal will die down. But our CEO cannot be dragged through the mud because of a moment's recklessness. The words cut like knives, slicing away the last shreds of her dignity. Amelia's nails dug into her palms until they nearly drew blood. She fought to steady her voice. So I'm just a sacrifice? Davidson folded his arms, gaze sharp and unwavering. Don't call it sacrifice. Call it responsibility. The name Hale is what matters here. Humiliation and helpless fury surged through her. It was like being plunged into ice water, robbed of air. She wanted to scream, to rip that letter apart, but her throat locked. Just then, the door burst open, slamming against the wall. Damien strode in, tall, commanding, his presence electric. His eyes swept over the resignation letter, then snapped to Davidson. His voice rang out, steel hard. She's not signing anything. Davidson rose, frowning. Damien, I know you have feelings, but be rational. You're putting the entire corporation at risk. Damien closed the distance, each step radiating restrained fury. His words were low but thunderous. The greatest danger isn't scandal, it's cowardice. I will not let Amelia be turned into a scapegoat. If this needs to be addressed, we'll hold a press conference, and I'll face every question myself. The room vibrated with tension. Davidson locked eyes with him for several long seconds, then exhaled sharply. He gathered his papers, his voice clipped. You'll regret this. The door shut behind him, leaving a silence so taut it might shatter. Amelia stood trembling, her pulse racing. She turned to Damien, eyes brimming with turmoil. You didn't have to do that. I'm just an intern. I'm not worth you taking on all of this. Damien moved closer, stopping only a breath away. His voice lowered, steady, resonant. Amelia, from the moment you walked in here, you changed something in me. I've stayed silent too long, but I can't anymore. Her lips parted, but no words came. Every nerve in her body quivered, caught between fear and the swell of something deeper. Damien's dark eyes locked on hers, unwavering, intense, as though he could see straight through to her soul. And then he said it, with no hesitation, no retreat. I love you, Amelia, and I won't let you fight this alone. The world seemed to still. Light streamed through the glass wall, casting twin shadows that converged into one. Amelia's throat tightened, her eyes glistened with tears, yet a trembling smile tugged at her lips. For the first time amid the chaos, she felt her heart had found its place. Outside, the storm of public opinion continued to rage. But inside that room, only one truth mattered: a confession, a vow, and a bond strong enough to weather any storm. Amelia had never felt her tiny apartment so suffocating. Outside, New York's night streets glittered with neon, but inside her chest was only a thick, heavy gray. On the table, her phone flashed with a new email from Meridian, Hale Dynamics' direct rival. "We value your creativity. The position of associate creative lead is open for you. No scandal, no pressure." She read it again and again. It was a dream opportunity, triple the salary, a prestigious environment, and, most importantly, absolute safety, an escape from the vicious storm of gossip. Amelia lowered her head onto the table, her hands gripping so tightly her knuckles turned white. Safe. The word echoed in her mind, cold and distant. Maya barged in without knocking, carrying a paper bag stuffed with food. "Hey, if you sit here sulking for one more hour, I swear I'm throwing you into the shower." Amelia lifted her head, eyes rimmed red. Maya set down the takeout noodles and gave her a look. "Let me guess. Meridian?" Amelia didn't answer, just nodded faintly. "You're thinking of taking it?" Maya asked bluntly. Silence. In Amelia's mind, the image replayed, Damien's resolute eyes as he said, "I love you and I won't let you fight alone." Her heart quivered, yet reason reminded her that loving Hale's CEO could only bring ruin. Maya leaned on the table, her voice unusually serious. "Amelia, do you want to live safe, or do you want to live happy?" Amelia blinked, confused. "What do you mean?" "I mean, safety's easy. Take the job at Meridian, earn money, freeze your heart. But happiness? That's hard, because it comes with risk. And you know full well Damien is the biggest risk of all. But he's also the reason your eyes light up every time his name comes up." Maya's words rang like a bell. Amelia suddenly remembered that night on the rooftop, the wind in her hair, their first kiss that made her tremble to her core. Part of her wanted to run, but another part of her couldn't deny it. Damien had already changed everything. The next morning, Amelia walked into the office. The company still buzzed with rumors. Some looked scornful, some pitied, and others sneered with malice. Davidson caught her in the hallway. He narrowed his eyes. "You're still here? Meridian's waiting with open arms." Amelia's reply was calm. "I know, and I also know where I belong." Davidson frowned but said nothing more. 9 a.m. The Grand Hale Dynamics press room overflowed with reporters. Cameras clicked in rapid bursts, flashes exploding like fireworks. Damien stepped out first, sharp in a dark suit, face composed, his eyes burning with quiet determination. Behind the curtain, Amelia's heart raced so hard it felt ready to shatter her ribs. Each step felt weighted with stone. But Maya's question echoed in her head. Safe or happy? The door cracked open. Damien turned, his gaze searching, then locking onto hers. For a heartbeat, every sound in the room vanished. Amelia drew a deep breath and walked forward. Before hundreds of lenses, she stepped up beside Damien. A fresh wave of noise surged through the crowd. Damien tilted his head slightly toward her, whispering just loud enough for her to hear. "Thank you." Amelia looked up at him, her eyes shining brighter than ever. In that instant, she knew she had chosen. Not Meridian, not safety, but the man beside her in the perilous, meaningful path they would walk together. The clicking of dozens of cameras thundered across the hall. The air was so thick that everyone could feel the scorching breath of scandal hanging over them. At the front podium, the Hale Dynamics logo gleamed on the giant LED screen, but all eyes were fixed on the two people standing side by side, Damien Hale and Amelia Carter. Damien gave Amelia's hand a light squeeze, a silent signal. He stepped forward, the microphone carrying his deep, steady voice. "I know why everyone is here. Over the past week, the leaked photos have sparked numerous speculations. But today, I won't avoid the issue. We will answer." A wave of murmurs erupted. Reporters shot their hands into the air, voices clashing for attention. Damien glanced at Amelia, as if handing her the choice. Amelia drew in a deep breath. Her throat was parched, her heartbeat pounding like a war drum. She could stay silent and let Damien take it all. But then Maya's voice echoed in her mind. Do you want peace or do you want happiness? She stepped forward. Flashbulbs exploded relentlessly, so bright they stung her eyes. But Amelia did not blink. I'll be direct, her voice rang out, clear and unwavering. I am at Hale Dynamics not because of anyone's permission or favoritism. I passed the same assessments. I worked through the nights. I proved my ideas in the boardroom. I am here because of my talent and effort, not because of any relationship. The buzz of chatter lessened. Many gazes turned from skeptical to curious. A female reporter stood and pressed her question. Then are you denying a romantic relationship with your CEO? Amelia paused for a second. The entire hall held its breath. Damien squeezed her hand more tightly but didn't interfere. This was her choice. Amelia lifted her chin, her eyes sharp as blades cutting through the tension. I am not denying it. If you ask me whether I love Damien Hale... She stopped briefly, a faint smile on her lips, her tone firm. The answer is yes. The hall erupted. Cameras flashed like fireworks, voices swelled into a storm. Some reporters gaped, others scribbled furiously into their notebooks. It was as if a bomb had detonated. Damien turned toward Amelia, his eyes glinting with an emotion rarely seen in the cold, financial titan, a mix of surprise, pride, and tenderness. Another reporter pushed forward. Mr. Hale, does this mean you admit the relationship is real? Damien lifted the microphone, his tone carrying no hesitation. Yes, and I want to add, I have never met anyone who could challenge and inspire me the way Amelia does. She is not just an employee, she is the woman I love. Once again the room rippled with shock, but this time, scattered applause broke through the uproar. After the press conference, major media outlets splashed bold headlines across their pages. The ice-cold CEO of Hale Dynamics declares love in the midst of scandal. Amelia Carter, from intern to the woman who dared to proclaim her love to the world. Social media is split into two camps. Some accused her of using romance to climb the ladder, while others admired Amelia's courage and sincerity. Surprisingly, within Hale Dynamics itself, the mood began to shift. Employees still whispered, but many recalled that it was Amelia's ideas that had saved the Lancaster project. Slowly, respect replaced prejudice. Most importantly, Vivian Lancaster, the toughest client of all, sent Damien a short email. Excellent presentation. Ms. Carter's candor only strengthens my trust in Hale Dynamics. I want to meet with her team again next week. That evening, as the city lit up, Amelia stood before the towering office window, silently gazing out at the sea of lights below. She was still unaccustomed to the roar of public attention, yet inside she felt a strange calm. The door opened quietly. Damien walked in, draped his suit jacket over a chair, and stepped up behind her. Wrapping his arms around her, he murmured, "You know, today you did something I never dared to imagine." Amelia leaned her head lightly against his shoulder. "I only spoke the truth." Damien smiled a rare smile breaking through his icy shell, and that truth changed everything. The Foxnick project launched under the stage lights of a grand auditorium, where hundreds of guests and partners from around the world had gathered. It was no longer a small experiment by a group of interns, but had become a flagship product marking the opening of a new era for Hale Dynamics. Amelia stood backstage, her heart pounding. On the giant screen, the illustrations of the idea she had once been removed from the presentation team for 2 years ago now played proudly. The words innovation, redefinition, future scrolled across the screen, drawing thunderous applause. Damien stood beside her, adjusting the microphone on his lapel, whispering, "You did it, Amelia." She smiled, but her gaze drifted toward the guest seats. There sat Davidson, the man who had once pressured her to resign, watching intently. Amelia held her breath for a moment. Would he admit it? When the presentation ended, applause roared through the hall. Vivian Lancaster rose to her feet first, offering a rare smile. Then Davidson followed. He stepped onto the stage, took the microphone and said, "I've worked in this industry for 30 years. I've met many talented people. But today, I must admit, Amelia Carter is one of the most outstanding talents Hale Dynamics has ever had." The hall erupted in applause. Amelia bowed in gratitude, her eyes stinging. She remembered every moment of doubt, every scrutiny she had endured, and now those very people were standing to applaud her. 2 years later, spring returned, and the artists' district in Brooklyn bloomed with the scent of cherry blossoms. The old brick walls were splashed with vibrant graffiti, and small cafes echoed with the strum of guitars. In a loft with tall skylight windows, Amelia was arranging drafts of her new designs. On her desk, a fresh business card gleamed in the sunlight. Amelia Carter, Creative Director, Hale Dynamics. She set it down, breathing deeply, letting gratitude fill her heart. 2 years ago, it had been nothing more than a fragile dream. Now it was her reality. Damien stepped in, holding 2 steaming cups of coffee. Still the CEO, but no longer living in a cold mansion. He had chosen this place, among the artist community, because Amelia had once said, "I want to breathe with the city." He set the coffee on the desk, his gaze warm. "Do you know you've changed my entire world?" Amelia chuckled softly. "I only did what I believed in." Damien was silent for a moment, then suddenly pulled a small velvet box from his pocket. Kneeling right there in the sunlit loft, he looked into her eyes, his deep voice steady. "Amelia Carter, our love doesn't need to be perfect. It just needs to be real. Will you marry me?" For a moment, Amelia felt as though all the noise of the city outside had faded away. All that remained were Damien's sincere eyes. Tears shimmered on her cheeks as she nodded. "Yes, I will." He slipped the ring onto her finger, then pulled her into his arms. The little loft instantly became the happiest place on earth. 1 year later, the wedding. It wasn't a lavish wedding with fireworks lighting up the sky, but a small, warm ceremony in the garden behind their loft. Cherry blossoms bloomed, golden lights hung from branches and twinkled like stars. Close friends, trusted colleagues, and Amelia's loyal friend were all there. Amelia wore a simple white dress, her hair tied back loosely. Damien, in a navy blue suit, wore a rare smile he reserved only for her. When the pastor asked, "Do you take this man to be your husband, to stand by him in all circumstances, in wealth or poverty, in sickness and in health, to love and cherish him until the end of your days?" Amelia looked at Damien, her eyes shining with pride. "I chose danger, and I chose right." Cheers, applause, and laughter mingled together. Damien pulled her close, kissing her deeply, rewriting their stormy past with a promise of forever. Amelia, once an intern cast out of the presentation team and once a name tied to scandal, was now a creative director, a woman recognized and loved. Damien, once a cold, untouchable CEO, had learned that true love wasn't about perfection, but about the courage to choose each other. And in the simple artist district, their love story continued to be written, day by day, with laughter and truth.